Back to the Academy. This afternoon I will be chatting with a Love Island legend, aka Camilla Thurlow. Yeah, we'll be talking with BBC Three, MTV and Vice all about content. Content. That is something that everybody will say to you in this industry. And we will hear from BBC Three's very talented Riyadh Khalaf and spoken word king who was on before, Sully Breaks, about making a career from your passion. And to finish it all off, we will have an exclusive performance from the Amazons, which is going to be good. You've got some Amazons fans in? Yeah? Have we got some Amazon fans in? There we go. Let's crack on with the Academy and the first session of the afternoon. Now, to say our next guest is multi-talented is a bit of an understatement. She's a bomb disposal specialist, a reality TV star, a humanitarian worker, all rolled into it. I mean, how many times you get to say that in one sentence? Before I introduce her to the stage, let's just have a look at a video of this girl.
In 2016, 45,624 people were killed as a result of armed violence, of which 70% were civilians. The lives and limbs of innocent people continue to be claimed by explosive remnants of war that are often left behind from conflicts fought long before their victims were born. Whilst Love Island may be about finding romantic love, there are so many other lessons that we have all learnt in here, and we now have the incredible opportunity to apply those in the world to make a real difference. To be brave, to stand up for what we think is right, to throw ourselves into every single challenge that life throws at us, and to always try and be that little bit kinder than we need to be.
UCLan, please give a big, warm, loud welcome to Camilla Thurlow! Sit yourself down. I think we want you on that one, Camilla, is that okay? Sorry, just me being OCD and picky. Now, we've seen that you was in Love Island before, and we'll talk about that a lot, I think, during this session. What were you doing before you went on the show?
So before I went on Love Island, I was working in explosive ordnance disposal.
What? So what? It's like a bomb disposal thing?
Yeah,
right.
I worked on the humanitarian side, so I was going to areas that were either experiencing conflict or had previously experienced conflict and where the remnants of war were still affecting civilians.
That must have been tough at times. Quite a rewarding job, but I suppose tough as well.
Yeah, I mean, an extremely rewarding job, and there were certain difficulties that came with it, some of which I spoke about on Love Island. One of the big things was the social dislocation I experienced when I used to come back, and I found it difficult to reintegrate with my friends and my family.
Right.
Yeah.
And how come you decided to go from that to go on to ITV2's Love Island?
Yeah, good question.
Quite a change.
Was a big change. So basically I was approached by a casting researcher for the show initially, and they asked if I'd like to come in for a chat. And I had just got back from a contract and was again struggling with the move back to the UK, so I thought, you know, what's there to lose? And I went in and had a little conversation with them, and the process just went from there, and then I suddenly found myself in a villa. And yeah, it just happened.
Wow. Anybody else here a massive Love Island fan as well? Did anybody else watch it over the past couple of years? A few people. It's such a great show. Tell us what it's like being on. Is it exactly what you see on the telly, or is it quite well produced? What's it like being on it?
As far as I know, it is exactly like what you see on the telly, but I have never actually been able to watch back my series.
Right.
But from everything I've heard, it is exactly what you see. The only thing is that, of course, when you're in it, it's 24 hours a day, so it's quite intense, and there are no distractions. So all the things you'd normally do when you're feeling a bit down or you're trying to not be upset about something, like go and watch TV or read a book, there's none of those things there, and life just becomes unbelievably accelerated. Friendships are accelerated, relationships are accelerated, and you definitely become, you know, a bit of an overthinker. You're living in a very small bubble.
Yeah. Are you still in contact with people from the show? Are you still good friends with them?
Yeah, definitely. Still really good friends with a few people, and then, yeah, of course, with Jamie, so it all turned out for the best.
That's good. I know you said before that you've not watched it back. Don't worry about that, because we had some guys on from Hollyoaks before, and they were saying that they hate watching themselves back. It's just a thing. When I hear myself on radio, I'm like, I have got the worst, most annoying voice, so it's not just you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at some of your best bits from Love Island.
You're a feminist, aren't you?
Shouldn't we all be feminists? Surely you believe in equality.
Oh, I believe in equality, but I feel like feminism believes in almost like inequality.
Absolutely not. I just feel like so many people, men and women, have struggled to move the feminist movement forward and explain that it is about achieving equality, regardless of gender. So to me, I feel extremely strongly about defending that.
See, that clip, I remember that when you talked about that on Love Island, and I was watching it, and I was like, go on, good for you, get him told. And you got quite a positive reaction from it, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously at the time, being in there, I had no idea what the reaction was.
Yeah.
And actually it was quite a scary moment, because anytime you have conflict or confrontation with someone, you do want to question, or you should really be questioning, why do I think these things? Why do I believe this? Should I be listening to more to what they're saying? Have I got the wrong end of the stick? And that was something that I really questioned afterwards, coming off the back of that. I was like, did I do feminism justice? Do I still think the way I thought before? Why have I come to this point where I do think these things? Why do I believe so strongly in this? And that for me was why it was so intense. And then obviously it was only like a month afterwards when we came out that I knew there had been any kind of reaction to it. In there you wouldn't even know what had been shown and hadn't been shown, so I had no idea how that would have been communicated.
What did you learn about yourself being on Love Island? Did you come off and think, I'm happy about that?
That I can't apply false eyelashes. Lots of different things, but mainly it wasn't so much what I learned about myself, but it was getting back to something that I had before, getting back to being able to have fun and not feel guilty about it, to embrace that side of myself, and just try and not be so serious all the time.
I mean, you went on the show, and I think it's fair to say you've used your fame or your profile since coming off Love Island to promote things that you're passionate about. Is that something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, I've been so fortunate to have a career that I felt so strongly about and found so rewarding that I could only ever work on things that I feel that strongly about. And it's the way that I now really like to live. It's feel passionate about things, and yes, that means on occasions that you're going to have real struggles and there's going to be difficulties, but the rewards are so worth it. And you know, coming off Love Island, we were unbelievably surprised at how successful it had been, and to not try and use that platform to do some kind of good, I think I would have been really disappointed in myself.
Because this year it was huge as well, but I suppose you could say last year was when it really started to take off. It was on Twitter, it was in the papers, and that's when I started. I was like, I'm missing out on something here. Was you surprised by how big it got in your year?
I was really surprised, for a couple of reasons. Obviously, because I was in the beginning, I went in at the beginning, so I'd never seen it as a TV show. So even in my head, I never really imagined it as a TV show. And also because I hadn't watched it before, I didn't really know what I was letting myself in for. So coming out at the end and seeing what it had been made into as a show and how incredible it had been was a real surprise. It was just unprecedented.
And you were saying since you've come out, you've done lots of work. What are you most proud of since you've left Love Island?
I think definitely the trip with Help Refugees to Kale last year, and with Huffington Post, was probably the thing that I feel most proud of. It was an amazing visit, and they are an amazing charity, and it was really nice to have an opportunity for a publication to allow me to share that work with more people.
We've actually got a clip of that. We'll watch it because it's a really good clip.
So I'm just on Iṛsᴛᴛᴇʀ on the way to Kale. Just starting to think a little bit more about the trip ahead, but I feel like if you can get there, if you can see it, then it makes such a big difference to your understanding of what's actually going on.
Even last year when the people started coming back, it was really terrifying. We were so scared of walking into the forest one day and seeing somebody frozen to death.
I think it's just so awful that they're basically trying to create circumstances that are so horrible and so difficult to live in that people go somewhere else. But the fact is these people have absolutely nowhere to go.
We lost our country and the British government provide us home when no one did.
That was immensely moving. We heard from some of the children who came over last year and they have brought flowers and a plaque saying thank you for the beautiful life you've given us here. It's so different from the life we fled. Now we're safe. Anyway, just like their gratitude and how much their lives have changed.
It must have been hard going there. Tell us what it's like and when you first got there, what did you first think? Because it must be quite overwhelming.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. I think the thing that happens with the coverage of the refugee issue is that we're given this kind of impression that there's us and there's them, and that it's impossible for us to identify with who they are. And the minute you get there and you start meeting people and talking to people, you know, their brothers, their sisters, their sons, their daughters, they've got a sense of humour. They're exactly like you and me, just unfortunate in their circumstances. And as soon as that human element starts to hit home, you really begin to realise how much suffering these people are going through. And they're not just a picture in a paper, and they're not just a number. They're someone whose life has been torn apart. So yeah, it was amazing and inspiring, and it's incredible to see the resilience of these people, and also very, very sad.
It's the world's biggest refugee camp. How many people are there?
No, so Cale's not the world's biggest refugee camp. In fact, the big issue in Calais was the fact that the refugee camp there, known as the Jungle, was destroyed. And there's some amazing footage of that being essentially burned down. Purposefully.
Yeah, that was by the local authorities, wasn't it?
Yeah, essentially. It's like iffy about talking about it. But yeah, and then all these people were forced to live, and they're not allowed to have tents because they're not allowed to have a settled camp. So they were just going into the woods and sleeping. 12-year-old boys just on their own, completely exposed to the elements. And it's not just that. They're exposed to they're immensely vulnerable. There's anyone could come and do anything. There are hundreds of children who went missing in the aftermath of the camp being destroyed. So it's just they're really truly dire circumstances, and just awful.
But you, like you said, you're proud that you did it, and you're glad that you went there.
So glad, because the thing is, like I said, the coverage that we get and the images that we're fed often don't represent the situation correctly, or they take away from the fact that there's a real human element to it. These are real people, and that's what we should be focusing on. And also that there are solutions to some of these problems. We have the capability to help people, and if we don't establish the way that we're going to address other people, and we don't hold on to the legislation that we created after the World War on how we treat people and on how we maintain human rights, then we are seriously going to start losing some of the things that are going to become unbelievably important with environmental change in the upcoming few decades. So it was a very important trip for me.
I think it's amazing that you went on such a popular reality TV show when most contestants do like it's the nightclub tours, don't they, and the DJs, and you went out somewhere like that. I think that says a lot about you, so you should be very proud of that. It's a really, really nice aspect about you. Going back to Love Island, you've defended reality TV shows quite a lot, and you feel quite strongly about them. Why is that?
I just don't like that we seem to have this idea that we're allowed to tell people, number one, how they should live their lives, but number two, if they make one decision, that means that you know exactly who they are. So there was a lot of discussion about the intelligence level of people who go on reality shows, and I think the idea that you can label someone with regards to something like that based on maybe one conversation you've seen, or even not even that, for some people it's just the decision to go on that show, they think that then they're allowed to label them as something. It's just it limits people, it puts people in boxes, and it's just a very dangerous way of living, because people start to live trying to make other people happy, trying to live up to someone else's ideal, and the person whose opinion you should really be worrying about is your own.
I think as well that a part of it is, because it gets a bad reputation, I think a part of it might be jealousy sometimes. Because if you ask these people that criticise them, I'm talking on Twitter and social media, if you ask them, I think 8, 9 out of 10 times they probably would go on a show like that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, I'd like to think that Piers Morgan is jealous of me, but I don't think he is.
Maybe Piers Morgan.
But I don't know. I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's probably really different for different people. But I do think we have to try and be open-minded. And the narrower we are and the more negative we are about other people, the harder we are being on ourselves, because then we have to live up to an unrealistic ideal as well. And that's just not a happy way to live.
And there's this fact that's going around everywhere. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's something like more people applied for Love Island than they did to get into Oxford and Cambridge. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, it's a bit of a ridiculous fact, isn't it?
I mean, it's again one of those things where I'd love to see how they collected the statistics on that side of things. But regardless, like, it shouldn't be for any of us to say what another person chooses to apply to and whether that's right or wrong. And you know, great for all the people who applied to Oxbridge, good luck with all your applications. Great for anyone who applied here. Great for anyone who applied to Love Island. And by the way, they're not mutually exclusive. You could apply to both. That was the other thing. Where's the overlap in that? So I
think Love Island does that because there's people from all walks of life. I mean, you watched it this year. They had a doctor in there as well, didn't they? And yeah, although he wasn't at first, he wasn't quite popular, Dr. Alex. But people from all different walks of life come into that show, and I think that's what makes it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to remember is in life, in general, no matter which path you're on, quite often the most important thing, in fact, I would say nearly always the most important thing, is your human relationships, whether they're friendships or romantic relationships. So when we're looking at something like Love Island, which is relevant to every single one of us, why would you not expect to see people from all walks of life, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
So if you're a doctor, you're not allowed to find love. I mean, again, it's just a bit of a sad way for us all to be.
It's like you said, it's putting people in boxes. You're a doctor, you can't go on Love Island. So what's next for you in your career? What's the plans now for the future?
I'm really hoping to be able to do something that would shed a bit of light on my previous career, so show a bit more of what it means to work in explosive ordnance disposal, and just keep on going.
Yeah?
Keep going.
Are you busy now over the next few months? Have you got a lot of things planned?
Yeah, I do have quite a lot happening the next few months, quite a lot of exciting stuff, but...
Well, we're here...
Secret for now.
I won't go into that too much. We're here to give these guys here at Preston at UCLan an insight into what it's like to work in the media industry, the creative industry, and to inspire them. So what would your one bit of advice be to these guys that maybe if they're thinking of going on a reality TV show or working in this industry, because it can be fun but it can be cruel at times as well?
Yeah, I mean, my one piece of advice to anyone who's looking to see what they want to do in the future is use every single thing that you have at your disposal, use every resource. People will often tell you what you can and can't do, and I think it's really important to take that and listen to it, but also to use it to give you the opportunity to try things. And the most important thing for me, which I wish I'd known when I was younger, is don't write yourself off. Don't say to yourself you can't do something before you try to do it, because for ages I thought I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. I was so lucky to end up in the career that I did. But it would have been very easy for me to turn away from that before I'd even been told that I couldn't do it. So yeah, just try everything that you possibly can and don't put yourself in a box. Just because you do one thing doesn't mean you can't do something else.
And that's a good bit of advice. Do you guys have any questions? We've got Abbie, who's out and about in the audience. We've already got some. Hi, Abbie. I can't see with these pigging lights.
I'm
you're
here,
there.
I'm here. I'm only little, but I'm here. Okay,
You're there.
let's get stuck in then. Someone's got
question.
hand straight up there. What's your name?
Abbie.
Excellent name. Repping for the Abbies. And what are you studying?
I'm at Winstanley College studying media, English language and psychology.
Wow.
Oh wow, a lot of stuff. And what is your question?
I was just wondering, how do you feel when people tell you that you've inspired them to go out and do things? Because personally, you've inspired me to go and do things and help people.
Oh no, I'm going to be crying again.
You're getting me going here, Abbie.
I'm done with this after Love Island. Oh, just unbelievably lucky, and it works both ways. Every time someone tells me that, it reminds me to keep going and keep trying. So I'm inspired in equal measure, so thank you very much.
Abbie, when you say Camilla's inspired you, what is it the sort of things that she's inspired? What is it you want to do?
I want to go into media and then use my platform to help people as well. And when you were doing the rant about feminism, it inspired me to like talk to more people about it and stuff. So
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Getting a lump in my throat now. Any other questions from you guys? Yes, got another hand up there.
Hello, what's your name?
Paisley.
What an awesome name, Paisley. And what is your question?
Do you ever get people saying that they don't like you because you're a feminist, or do you get hate because you're a feminist? Because people in my high school when I was there, they didn't like that I was a feminist.
I'm really sorry that that happened to you, and yes, I do sometimes experience that. I think quite often it's to do with a misunderstanding of feminism as opposed to anything else. And the important thing with something like that I found, and it's taken me months and months to learn it, and I still have days where I can't do it, but it's to not take it personally. Having a belief and having reasons for that belief is one of the most important things you can have in your life, and it gives it meaning. And just for someone to say, based on one word, that they think that you're wrong is a really difficult thing to deal with. But you are the one who has decided that you have those beliefs and they are important to you. And so I just hope that you know that that's something that gives you immense strength.
So you think it's a misunderstanding half the time?
Yeah, I think it's a real... Feminism as a word has become relatively controversial, and interpretations of it have been occasionally misguided and have also led to discussions that haven't always been around feminism itself, as opposed to a representation of it and how it should be represented. So I would say in that case, if you're debating with someone, you have the opportunity to voice why you have those beliefs. That's really important, because they might just suddenly turn around and go, oh, I didn't actually realise that's what it was all about.
As a guy, what's the best way we can support it? What's the best thing that we can do? Because sometimes you're totally up for it, but you feel like you can't really comment on it, that kind of thing. What's the best thing that guys can do?
I think feeling like you can comment on it, because the point of feminism is equality, and both of us, everyone should have an equal role in how we address that. And yeah, so I think the most important thing is that anyone from any walk of life, however they identify, feels like they're able to discuss it, and that their view is valid and important, and that hopefully together we can reach a more equal world where people feel like they are able to do what they want to do and achieve the things that they would like to achieve.
Fair enough. Have we got any more questions, please, Abbie?
Any more? Oh, there's one down here. Hello, my friend. I'm just going to pass you the mic. Introduce yourself and then, fire your question.
Hello. Oh, I'm loud. I'm Michael, and I was just wondering, obviously I was talking about feminism in the media industry. What do you think the media industry could do more to support feminism in general? Because I know there's an argument against things like Love Island in terms of perpetuating stereotypes of what a man should be and what a woman should be. So what do you think that broadcasters and people making content can do to support the feminist movement, and so that people understand more about it, I guess?
That's such a good question. I mean, first of all, when we're looking at content, there's such a diverse range of content nowadays in the media coming from different sources, so it's very hard to apply a solution that's one size fits all. But the most important thing we can do is, number one, treat staff fairly, make sure that everyone's treated and given equal rights, equal opportunities. And then we should see equal representation happening over time, naturally, organically. I think it's also really important to understand that there needs to be a diverse range of people in the media so that everyone feels included. When you're watching something, you don't feel excluded from that. And yes, there will always be questions about which shows are able to do that and which shows can't do that, but this is about progress, and criticism is not necessarily a negative thing. In fact, it's very positive and it's very important and constructive. And there's some way to go in this industry, there's some way to go in many other industries, but we can keep making progress so long as we will continue to have these open, frank discussions about what can be done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Any more? If you just pop your hand up, Abbie will come over to...
Give us a wave.
We've got a gentleman here.
Lou's heading over with the mic if you go on the
Lou's
other side.
going to come over. If you tell us your name and... are you studying here as well? Are you studying at UCLan? Preston College? No, Preston's College. They go mad at you if you have no... I'm getting looks. It's Preston's College. With the S. What's your name?
Oh, Jesus. My name's Don Logan.
And what are you studying at Preston's College?
Creative Media Production level 2.
Nice. And what's your question?
So you've brought awareness to charities with the refugees and causes like that. Are there any other causes that you believe should have more awareness that aren't represented as much in the media?
Do you know, there are so many, and this is one of the biggest dilemmas I've faced in the past year, is that the reason that the refugee cause is so close to my heart is my previous job, I was going to areas where people had been displaced by conflict and couldn't come home safely, and places where children couldn't play and schools couldn't be built because they were in fear of their lives. And meeting those people who were then displaced was something that became really pertinent to me and really hit home and just related to everything I'd done before. But there have been so many causes that people have made me aware of in the last 12 months, and honestly, all you want to do is help everyone with everything, and it's just not feasible. And that's one of the hardest things, because you experience a lot of guilt, because you're always thinking, is there something more I could do? Everyone will have a cause or will have been touched by something in their lives that is then important to them. But that's why I think it's so imperative that people do use their platform, whatever that may be, whether it's 30 followers and they're your mates, whether it's your school, your uni, to try and draw people's awareness to it and to make gains in that movement.
Thank you very much.
Great question, thank you. We've got time for one more, Abbie. Is there anybody who's got one more question for us to end on?
You are the lucky lady at the front here. Nice hair and nice glasses. What's your name?
My name's Sophie.
And what is your question, please?
I just wanted to know how you managed to stay strong emotionally throughout your career.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a really interesting question. So there were a couple of things that happened. The first thing was that I didn't really have time to feel sad about things, if that makes sense. I was busy all the time, and you're always thinking about other people, and actually that's one of the most liberating things, because you don't have time to think about things that would upset you, and it would seem incredibly selfish to take ownership of these other people's trauma and then feel emotional about it yourself, because it stops you doing your job. That being said, there comes a point as well where that's a bit unhealthy, because I shut down emotionally to a point where it probably wasn't good. Like, I didn't cry for 4 years and then managed to do it all in the space of 7 weeks on Love Island. So I think, resilience and strength comes often from looking outwardly and seeing what else you can do. But for me, the main thing was that I knew I had this big responsibility. I didn't want my feelings to get in the way of doing that, because that would be more dangerous. And so I just switched it off, if that makes sense. But I don't know if that's strictly true, because I still also felt really strongly about helping people, but I just didn't let myself get upset. That's not very constructive, because I'm just saying I just didn't let myself, but that's really how it happened. But it happened gradually over time. It wasn't like one day I was suddenly like, no, it's fine. It just suddenly happened. And I really believed in what I was doing. I guess that was what kept me going. Is that all right?
It's a great question, thank you. I'm going to pass Abbie over for the next session, but before I do, it's been a pleasure. It's been such a lovely soul and a really caring person. So, Preston and UCLan, can you please give a big thank you to Camilla? Thank you very much. I'm going to pass you over to my lovely friend, colleague, and birthday girl, Abbie. It's her birthday today.
It is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
You better be nice. How are we doing, Preston? Come on. Come on. Surely you've got more energy than that. How are we doing, Preston? There we go. They're back in the room. Hello, my name's Abbie McCarthy. I'm a radio presenter for Radio 1 and BBC Music Introducing, and I'm going to be hosting the next couple of panels. They're good ones, you're going to love them. So next we've got our content panel, and we've got a pretty stellar lineup on this one. So please welcome our guests, Craig Orr, Vice President and Commissioning and Development at MTV International, Nasfim Haque, Commissioning Editor at BBC Three, and Sirin Kale as well, Associate Editor at Vice's international female publication, Broadly. Make some noise, please. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Preston, welcome to the Academy. How are we all?
Good, yeah.
Good, yeah, I think good. Okay, so all of you have pretty much the best jobs ever. You work for some of the biggest youth brands in the world. It must be so good to do what you do, but can we take it back to the start? How did you all get started in the industry? We'll start with you, Craig.
So I got started in the industry. I was actually studying chemistry at university, which is kind of the complete opposite of what I do now. I was in my student union one day, saw a postcard saying, "Do you want to work in TV?" And I was like, "I don't want to work in chemistry, I'll give that TV a go." Applied onto a scheme which was called TVYP, which is now called The Network, which is run by the Media Guardian. It's a 3-day course up in Edinburgh in August. It's absolutely brilliant. I went along to that, spoke to loads of other people and heard loads of talks about what the different kind of careers in television were, and I thought, this is a bit of me, you know, I really wanted to do it. And from there, that kind of started the passion for working in television, and then I got lucky enough to get on a graduate scheme with a production company.
Amazing. And Sirin?
So I guess my story is that it's okay to try something out first and then get into another career, because I career changed. So I spent maybe 4 years working in an industry that I really didn't enjoy at all. I was working in PR, wasn't for me. And I always kind of knew that I didn't really want to do that, and I didn't really enjoy it, but I didn't really know how to get into journalism. I now work at Vice, and back then I would read Vice a lot and think, wow, I would love to work somewhere like that, but I have absolutely no idea how I would know how to get in there. So I did what a lot of people did in like the 2012 period, which is I started a quite bad blog actually, and I started basically writing about my life and all the stuff that I like to do and places that I like to go. And off the back of that, I started getting kind of little commissions to write for small local magazines, maybe like a review of a club night or a review of a party or something like that. And I kind of built that up over a couple of years whilst also maintaining my job in PR, where my bosses did not know about what I was doing. And after a certain period of time, I was just talking to somebody in a pub that I used to work for, and I was telling them a story, and they were like, "That would be a great story to pitch to Vice, you should pitch that to Vice." And I was like, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to pitch a story to Vice. I read it, but I don't know anyone there. And they were like, it's actually really easy to do something like that. Here's the email address of the editor. You should just write to them and say you'd like to write this piece for them. So I did that. They wrote back to my astonishment and were like, yeah, we'd love you to write this article for us. And so I started writing for them freelance over the period of about 1.5 years. And then one day I was just at work and I suddenly thought to myself, this is really not what I want to do in my life. So I emailed them. And I was like, hey, I don't suppose you have any internships going. I'm just about ready to quit my job. If you have anything going, I will quit it and I'll come in tomorrow and I'll work for you. And again, to my astonishment, they emailed back and they said, yeah, okay. So that's basically my story. And I guess my story is that if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's okay. Like, you can find something else that you like. And I got into journalism when I'm 26, I'm 29 now, and I never would have thought when I got into journalism that I'd be able to have a career in it, but I do, and it's great. Nasfim?
So pretty similar. I started quite late. I also did natural sciences at university. I actually went on to do a PhD and publish books about drugs for my sins. So yeah, definitely had another life. And I always knew I wanted to work in content making or television, because that was the only medium really that was quite prominent. And it just wrote loads back then. It was snail mail, write lots of letters, you know, kind of bug people, send in crappy show reels of yourself, because you just don't know what you want to do, but you just want to be part of it. And eventually, you know what, I just gave up. I really did. I just thought, you know what, I'm doomed. I'm going to work for the civil service and that's it, you know. But actually, it was my dad, and I think he knew that for many years I'd wanted to work in the media. That saw it was a tiny little ad in the local paper that said, look, BBC Wales, I'm from Wales, are looking for new ideas and new people, essentially. And I think at that point, probably, and I'm definitely a lot older than you are, that the distinction was that perhaps I had a strong grounding in a degree, if you like, and actually one of the things I'd probably love to say to everyone is get a good degree, because I think actually in my case it definitely helped. You know, I had a degree, had something beyond that as well. I published some research as well, and actually had something to say beyond just talking about stuff that I loved. You know, I actually could talk about science if I really wanted to. So yeah, I basically wrote in and got an interview, and it sounds quite easy in retrospect, but at the time it was just a tiny little, you know, kind of ad that said, look, you know, are you interested? And I thought, you know what, this is one last shot, but it's the thing that got me into BBC Wales, and then there you go, 15 years later, here I am. You know,
so 3 awesome jobs, but what is it like for you on a day-to-day basis? Like how does your diary look each day?
Mad, crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'm just returning back after having a kid, and you do get a sense of perspective, which is I just want to sit and have lunch for 20 minutes. So yeah, it's crazy. It's rammed, meeting people, you know, going through your inbox, talking to other parts of your team because you cannot do anything in a silo. But it's just jammed, basically.
What I love about my job is that I get to define it so much. I very rarely get told you should do this or you should do this. So I'm predominantly an editor and a writer. So I'd say most of the time I'm either writing or commissioning stories. So someone will pitch me a story and I'll work with them on the outline of the story, and we'll go through rounds of edits and then we'll publish it. So that'll be one thing that I'll do. Or I'll be like, actually, I want to write an article myself. So I'll go away and I'll be doing interviews, I'll be doing research, I'll be writing the article. Sometimes interviews will take you out of the office. I also do production, so I'm hosting a documentary at the moment, so that will be a lot of going on shoots, filming. Sometimes I go into the edit and I'm editing and producing documentaries myself, so I'll be sitting with the editor and saying, like, we should use this bit, we shouldn't use this bit, we need to change the sound on this bit. And what I really love about working somewhere like Vice is that it's really just allows you to do that. You know, when I joined, my job was not anything to do with production, it wasn't anything to do with documentaries, but because I wanted to make it part of my job, it now is. So I recently produced a documentary and I'm working on another one, and that's great because it feels like I have a lot of creativity to do what I want, and every day is really different.
So 2 commissioning editors, obviously, on the panel. What are you looking for? What kind of ideas and shows excite you? Do you want to go first?
What I did, so I work for MTV International. Primarily, MTV is a youth-focused channel. So anything that is uniquely and exclusively youth television, 16 to 34 is our perfect age range, our demographic. Then within, so that is the kind of audience that we're trying to attract with our shows, and then within that, the brand of MTV, I would say, is fun, funny, quite edgy, irreverent, and very visual. So I have to commission shows that not just play in the UK, but play everywhere around the world. So they can't feel too focused in the UK. They have to have a theme that would work everywhere. For example, one of my shows, X on the Beach, when we commissioned that, everybody and most people, you know, when you talk about that idea, or when you started talking about that idea, most people have an ex and they can go, oh God, you know, and they can imagine who they would have that would come out of the beach for them. So that is a universal idea that most of us share, that common thing of exes, and some of them can be nice and some of them can be horrible. So it's trying to find that something that works internationally, something that's very young, and also we're not, you know, a big channel on Freeview or terrestrial. We are a small channel on Sky, so we really have to stand out. Our ideas have to really scream and be really noisy, so they have to attract a lot of press, or have to be quite controversial sometimes in nature to get people talking about them. If people are talking about them, then people are going to go and try and watch them, and that's kind of the kind of shows we're looking for.
Okay. And Nasfim for BBC Three?
We're a similar demographic. We are an online channel. We used to be on television and then we moved online, which is a big bold move. And for us, we want to get the same 1634 demographic. But I guess for us, we're part of the BBC, so all our content has to have a sense of purpose about it, or a sense of kind of helping young people navigate their world. We're just looking for great stories that resonate with young people, and I think one of the things that Three are very good at, BBC Three, is I think we allow our audience to tell their story. So if you look at all our content across Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and even iPlayer, you'll see that a lot of our stories are told in the world of the young person. So anything that kind of resonates with the young person is kind of a happy news for us, if you like. So.
And when BBC Three moved to online, did that kind of change what you were looking for a little bit?
Well, I wasn't there, but I think look, it's in some ways we're so ahead of the curve actually, because we've gone right. What we're going online, that's where our audience are, and it's exciting times. So I know that obviously things change, and the way that you run a publisher or broadcaster or which was then known as a channel, but it's kind of different now, has changed. But I think we're rising to the challenge. So yeah.
And Sirin, what do you think Vice are looking for in terms of ideas?
Well, that's a difficult question.
Yeah. You do a lot of different things, don't you?
Yeah, we do loads of different stuff. We have loads of different websites. We have Broadly, which is the women's website, which I predominantly write for. We have Munchies, which is our food site. I think we are genuinely looking for subculture, like real subculture, like real underground culture, real youth culture, not stuff that you've read about elsewhere, not stuff that you've seen elsewhere. It has to be something that is really, really, really new and fresh, and it's got to be young. Obviously, Vice's origins were as a kind of counterculture punk magazine in Canada, so there's still that ethos that does really underpin the brand. So it's very important that what we're doing is not feeding into a kind of really established status quo. So we wouldn't be looking for stories that are kind of quite staid. We'd want stories that are really new and quite original.
So the audience here are like your target demographic, really, aren't they? How do you kind of keep in touch with what they're interested in, what they're watching, what they want to see on TV?
Well, at MTV, we do loads and loads of research. We do lots of focus groups with young people. We do launch parties with, when we launch a brand new show, we'll invite a load of MTV viewers, normal reality viewers, and other 1634s to come along and watch the show, give feedback, and we ask loads and loads of questions, and we get loads of information around that. We also do, there's lots of international research groups, research studies going on all the time, looking at what people are expecting next, or we look at our competitors and other brands that specifically target our demographic and kind of say, what are they doing, and we kind of build up a bigger picture of that. We also, we do have a massive social following across all of our different brands, so we can reach out and we can see what people are talking about straight away. So from our shows, we know what people like, what they don't. Are they tagging, Love Island or different other shows? Are they talking about those? And we can really build up a picture on social quite quickly too.
So similar, we have an audience research team as well, but also I think now that we're publishing our content across all these different platforms, our audience tell us what they like and what they don't like, so it's a very direct thing, we you kind of get a sense of what if somebody follows us, who else are they following, so it's quite fluid, we kind of keep our eyes peeled. And then the other way that we really get a sense of our audience is by having a brilliant team who are our audience. So I think that is something that's quite important, that kind of once the kind of image of the BBC was a kind of stuffy one, but now I would say BBC Three is a completely different ball game. Look at most people on our team. Back in the old days you'd never see a 25-year-old manager, but you see one now. You see people from all walks of life, all different kind of paths into the industry. So I'd say our team are very brilliantly representative of our audience as well.
Sirin, anything to add? How do you kind of know what to write about for young people?
Yeah, what you're saying, you do kind of have to have young people working there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you really do. That's not to say that when we all hit 30, everybody that's taken out the back of the building shot. I'm hoping that won't happen because I turn 30 next year, so I quite enjoy life. But yeah, you need to, the sort of people you hire are so important. All of my peers and my colleagues, they have so many interests, like they're so varied in their interests, and they really do genuinely understand the cultures that they're writing about. For example, Vice is one of the first publications to really write about trans rights and really go in on trans rights, and this was way before people were writing about transgender issues. And we have many transgender contributors, and we also have staff members who are trans. So that enables us to be so much better on the issue than anyone else, because we actually have people working at the publication who are from that demographic.
Now, you've all worked on so much amazing stuff, but ahead of this, we got you to pick some things that you're super proud of, things that you've worked on. So, Craig, we've got a clip of the Charlotte show, but tell us a little bit more about that before we see the clip.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you know Charlotte Crosby is a pretty big deal at the moment. She started off in Geordie Shore 7.5 years ago, and she did about 5 years of that. We've got a really good relationship with Charlotte. I absolutely love her, and she has wanted her own show from day one. She had a little break when she left Geordie Shore to look after herself, and then we brought her back as a presenter and just the two of us, and then we thought this year it is time to open it up and give her her own show.
She got her wish, and this is what it looks like.
Oh my god. Oh my... Gary's had the baby. I didn't know she was due. Wow, what an awesome song. Get to meet our son. £6.
I built a wall so I could reach.
That was short, wasn't it?
Can I just say something about Charlotte, right? Like, a lot of people think with reality stars, like, it's, they've got no talent, and they're, and they don't have to work hard for what they've got. Charlotte is such a hard-working girl and really puts everything into it. She's also, Charlotte is special in terms of, Charlotte's got 6.4 million Instagram followers, and she's way above probably any other reality star in the UK for that, and most of them actually around the world. Maybe not the Kardashians, but she is so good, and she really works, and big thing about Charlotte is, and what these reality stars can do when they really work, is give every side to them possible. There's almost like a deal that was made, like an unwritten agreement between the producer and the talent, where it's like, well, what we would sometimes say on Geordie Shore is like, you live your life unfiltered, like, let it all hang out, do whatever you want to do, the good, the bad, the angry, the sad, whatever it is. That rhymed, that was quite nice, but whatever it is, do it, and we won't judge you, we will tell your best story. And Charlotte is so good because she can be extremely funny, but she can also show her horrible sides and her really vulnerable sides too. And that makes her a fully rounded reality star, and that is why she has really resonated above so many other stars. And I think, Charlotte is also one of those people where things just happen to her. That happened. Gary was her boyfriend on Geordie Shore, on-off boyfriend for 5 years, and that was the birth of his son, and that was her finding out. That happened, and this is so typical Charlotte Crosby, but that happened on day one of our filming. And it just goes to show, like, when we make the show, we're like panicking to get the show on TV as soon as we filmed it, because her life moved so fast. There's so much drama packed into every single day that we're worried that, oh crap, is the show going to go out 3 months later and she's going to be split up with her boyfriend, she's going to be with somebody else, she's going to be she's going to be in a completely different setup. But that is also why she is what I would say, close to a perfect reality star, because drama and reality just happens to her on a minute-to-minute basis.
And we also have a clip of a brand new show that you've been working on, hosted by Maya Jama, True Love or True Lies. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we launched this show at the start of August. It just came out a week or two after Love Island. It was our first stripped show, and a stripped show means it goes like Love Island or Let's Go Dating. It goes every day of the week rather than a weekly show. We only did 10 episodes, but it was Maya Jama presented. Danny Dyer was the voiceover.
He was amazing, obviously.
Which was a stroke of absolute genius / fluke, because I booked him the week before it had been announced that his daughter was doing Love Island. Then when it said Danny Dyer was going to do Love Island, I was like, yes, that can only be good for us. But this is a show where not reality stars, where couples go to a mansion to compete to be the perfect couple. But what we wanted to say was, unlike a lot of other dating shows, we wanted to point out that love comes in all shapes and sizes, and all different types of relationships are interesting and have something to say. So we wanted to bring as many different types of people and types of relationship together, and let them decide for themselves who was the best. Hidden within that, though, was a twist, which is a nice little MTV mechanic that we like to do. But the twist was, not all of them were even in relationships. So there were people trying to fool that they were in relationships as well. That was a nice dynamic as well, because we had lots of different interesting people fooling in relationships. There were straight people pretending to be in gay relationships, gay people pretending to be in straight relationships, people with husbands, wives, and other, it was just a big mix, and it was a big experiment. We didn't know if it was going to work. We were really scared that they were going to find all of the liars straight away, and we were going to be like, oh crap, we're just giving away loads of money for nothing, and the show's not going to work, because it'll be so obvious that the fake couples are fake. But within a day or two, and nobody knew what was going on, it was like one of the most exciting things I've worked on for a long time. It's fun.
It's super addictive, to watch. I loved it. Let's have a little look.
Dan and Olivia, your fellow couples have decided that your love is a lie. Come and join me.
The couples have spoken, and they've done a right number on these two. Time to find out if they called it right.
Alright, so guys, how are you feeling?
Yeah, gutted, aren't we?
Yeah, disappointing to obviously be first ones going out. We've just done our best, we've been ourselves.
We were just us, 100%.
We were just too perfect by the sounds of it, so we got voted out.
Will these two leave with their heads held high, or the shame of living a lie? Ask them the question, Maya.
Dan and Olivia, are you lovers or are you liars?
This is it. I know what I'm thinking. What about you?
We are lovers.
They were the first couple out, and when I saw their casting tape, I was like, oh, they are the winners. They are going to win. They are such a perfect couple, and it's so obvious that they're, that people are going to see through them. They're the first couple out. Everyone's like, nah, too good to be true. They're out of there.
So do you think that will come back?
I really hope so. Yeah. We are. It's done really well for us in the UK. It's going out internationally at the moment, and it's really fun to I love following social media when we put a new show out, but it's really fun now to read all the tweets and do translate tweet, because all these Brazilian tweets are coming through. The Spanish tweets are going to start tonight when it starts airing in Spain. So it's really fun to see everybody playing along at home. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Nasfim, we've got a little reel now of some of your work at BBC Three.
Rough everything.
God, sorry.
It went absolutely miserable without him.
I bet you're trouble.
You saw me.
Bish bash bush.
Kind of shaky at that.
This isn't a official in your shirt. Kate, how many lines are on your shirt? 4. Yeah. What's your favourite song called? 3 lines on the shirt. Thank you.
Obviously, lots in that, but I know one of the things you're particularly proud of is eating with my ex. So yeah,
I can't take credit for everything on that tape, like Chabadi, but much as I'd love to. Eating with my ex was a brilliant short form series that I commissioned about a year and a half ago, and it came from really looking at what was out there in the ether, what was really kind of emerging, and I saw the Salt Bay viral that went round. And actually I thought, how do we do relationships, and how do we kind of take what we kind of know from doing formatted shows when we were on television and adapt that for kind of a digital audience who may not want to sit through 29 minutes of something. So there was a pilot that was kind of sitting about and nobody really kind of knew what next, and I sort of did a bit of research and worked with a brilliant team at Shot Glass Media, who are an indie, that pitched to me and said, look, how about if we take every single episode, really really kind of filter it down to the bare bones of a brilliant conversation and center it around a particular issue that couples may have, or that particular couple might have. This might work for us. So it's a 10-part series, and it did really well for us, like millions of combined views, if you like. And it's now just gone into becoming a long-form series, which means it may be hitting your screens again. So the genesis and the cycle of this has kind of gone round, if you like. But it doesn't mean that we don't want more of that kind of thing, because it just felt like a perfect bit of digital content, taking some of the old ideas, if you like, from Teleland and adapting it for kind of a new generation, if you like. So.
I think what's special about BBC Three is you can do something sort of like quite hard hitting, but then also you've got like comedy as well. You've got sort of like lots of entertainment shows, and also there's a programme on at the moment called Killing Eve. Did you help work on that?
No, that was. I mean, that comes to Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who did feedback for us, and she went and wrote this brilliant series. So it's part of BBC America co-pro, but we now BBC Three have got the box set because we have a good relationship with her. But I have to say that we have I look after one part of Three, but we have a brilliant in-house team, and we also have. So comedy commissioning as well. So most of our comedy comes through comedy commissioning. So there are many avenues to Three, if you like, and I look after a very bespoke digital side of Three, dedicated to short form content. So.
Okay, Sirin, we'll move on to you. We've got a very powerful clip of something that you've made, but just to warn everybody, the content is a little bit challenging.
Try and breathe. Have a shot. Just try. I know. How old's Alice? She's only 20. I mean, that's just coming. I like to that absolute psychopath.
I think she had to be quite determined to say, no, I am not going out with you anymore.
And at that point, she broke off the relationship. And that was when his controlling behaviour turned to stalking.
She was worried someone had got into her phone and put some spyware on her Android phone. So I talked her through how she could get it all factory reset. And then things started escalating, which was when Tᴡɪᴛᴛᴇʀ turned up at the house.
There was this knock on her window. When she pulled back the curtains, he was outside and he'd just left a box of chocolates and some flowers on the windowsill and was backing off with his hands like this.
Climbed in through a window and he cut her throat in the bathroom.
Alice was lying on the floor in the bathroom, covered in blood.
Wow, obviously like pretty intense stuff. How was that to work on?
Yeah, so earlier this year, I kind of decided that I wanted to do a big campaign around stalking. Kind of using all the resources that we have at Vice, and I'm working with my team. So I work for Broadly, which is Vice's women's site. So there's actually only 2 of us in the UK. Everyone thinks that we have a huge team, but we don't. So we decided we really wanted to kind of. One of the great things about Vice is that you can do editorials, so that's like written, but you can also do production, and it's so small and it's so lean that you can do stuff together. So we decided that we really wanted to make a short film to go on the kind of Vice YouTube and Facebook. I think that video's now got 1 million views. Focusing on the story of a young stalking victim who was murdered by her ex-boyfriend in order to kind of raise awareness of the issues around stalking and intimate partner violence, because I think that most people don't really understand how behaviour that we might think is kind of innocuous, like somebody texting you when you tell them not to, or calling you when you tell them not to, how that can actually really escalate into kind of murderous violence. And so we reached out to Alice's family, so that was her father Clive, her mum Sue, her brother Nick, and we filmed a very short film with them telling the story of Alice's life and how she was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. The reason that I wanted to use Alice's case in particular is because Alice called police a couple of times before she died, and the 999 calls that she made to police are actually available. So it kind of felt like quite unique to be able to have Alice's voice in the film about her. Obviously, she's not with us anymore, but it was really important that we had that voice there. So that's why we chose that story. And we actually screened that film in the Houses of Parliament, which is really weird because Vice has never been anywhere near the Houses of Parliament. I mean, when we were booking the room in Parliament to screen the film, I'm pretty sure they thought we were a porno mag. But yeah, we screened it in Parliament. We brought Alice's family to the event. They gave a really powerful speech. And it's kind of the first part of our campaign, which is called Unfollow Me, which is a big anti-stalking campaign that we're running over the next year in the UK.
I guess that's one of the best things, isn't it, about making content? It's telling other people's stories. Would you say that's your favourite part?
Yeah, I don't know if it's my favourite part, but you know, when I produced this film, I probably watched it like 100 times. You're watching it to make sure that like the mix and grade is okay, and that like the subtitles don't have typos in them. You totally become so desensitized to what it is. You know, like I was completely desensitized to it. And then when we screened it in Parliament, I just watched an entire room full of people cry, and obviously that's a really terrible thing to kind of feel pleased about, but it meant that the message was working and that people were understanding. And since that film went out, I've had so many people message me on Twitter or email me or Facebook me saying, you know, my friend's in a similar situation to Alice was, and I didn't realise how dangerous it was, but now I do, and she's going to go to the police, or she's going to contact a charity for help, or I'm in a similar situation to Alice's situation, and I didn't realise how dangerous it was, but actually everything that her ex-boyfriend did, my ex-boyfriend does to me too. So that's kind of when you realise that you do have a really big responsibility to use your platform, not just to entertain, but also to do some good.
Have you guys got anything to add? Do you think storytelling's a big part of what you do at BBC Three?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is a massive privilege to work in this industry. I think that's something that, you know, you just can't forget. You know, my sisters are conventional medics, but I look at them and I say, oh, you know, you can save someone's life. They're like, no, it's amazing. You can watch YouTube all day, Nash. You know, which of course I don't do, but you know what I mean. But you know, it is a privilege, and similar to yourself, Sirin. You know, we did a story about sadly young people taking their own lives at universities in Britain, and we made this film. You know, and it was told the story of 3 retrospective cases. And put it out there, and it absolutely just went mental. People were completely identifying with the topic. They'd known somebody, they could relate themselves. And I remember the production company who made it for us sent an email, and it was from a young man in America who'd written to say, you know, today it could have all ended for me, but I just stumbled upon your film, and I, you know, I watched it, and now I'm seeking help. And sometimes, you know, as a producer, you have battles, you know, like that was called Death on Campus, and we named it Suicide Stories on YouTube, which, you know, could be provocative, but I really fought hard for that title because I wanted people like him to come and, you know, they might have been Googling something else, but then, you know, I knew that if I put that title, maybe somebody might stop and watch this. So, but yeah, very extraordinary privilege.
Are you going to think so?
Yeah, I think, you know, at MTV we really don't do hard hitting at all, and we are really an entertainment for entertainment sake channel, and we've really looked to try and get into this world a bit more. I would like that. I'm not sure the audience would come to MTV for that, and that might be the difference. I do think, to your question and storytelling in general, I do think one of the biggest privileges of working in mostly reality TV is finding incredible new people with massive personalities and kind of showcasing them, kind of introducing them in the best way I can, and it can be you know, absolute bags of fun. I think on the other side, and even when we talk about we're talking about True Love or True Lies earlier on, and that was maybe a slight sidestep from how we would cast X on the Beach or other shows, in terms of we really recognise the need for more diversity and inclusion within television, particularly entertainment and reality. And alongside, you know, our programmes, we can also go, you know, we have a big pro-social side team that work on a lot of outreach projects and work with people on the ground on various programmes that might be a sidestep or do their own stuff as well. And I think that is maybe the best avenue for us to help, I guess. I don't know where I was going with that, but you know what I mean.
For all of you growing up, were there any TV shows that you watched? Or any content that, you know, particularly struck a chord?
I'm not going to say very much because it might actually show my age, but I don't remember, nobody here will remember Def 2 on BBC 2, which was their kind of opt-out kind of youth culture slot. Used to love all that kind of stuff, love The Word, you know, like shows like, I don't know, even like Why Don't You back in the early days on CBBC, it was really cool. So yeah, I mean, look, there's loads of stuff out there, but it would really show my age if I
I mean, I'm predominantly from a kind of writer-editor background, so for me it was newspapers. I watched a lot of TV, but it was all trash. And actually, my mum used to, this was back when newspapers still existed, which they kind of increasingly don't anymore. So, but my mum used to buy me one really left-wing newspaper and one really right-wing newspaper because she wanted me to be able to kind of make my own mind up from looking at a story from both sides. And so I read The Independent and the Daily Mail, which are kind of the most opposite newspapers you can possibly get. But actually it was so good because you could see how one person might approach a story in such a different way to another person approaching that same story. So you kind of became really aware of stuff like editorial bias, how a story is framed, how it's commissioned. And also just like, everyone should read newspapers all the time. They're really interesting. Like, I genuinely used to really enjoy reading them, and I've always loved trash as well. So I think it's everybody gets quite worthy about stuff and really worthy about like, oh, I'm only reading, you know, like the Financial Times, but I loved reading Female, which was like the Daily Mail's women's supplement. I loved reading about makeup. I loved reading celebrity gossip. I love all of that stuff, and I think that some of the best journalists I know now are people who are kind of will take lowbrow culture, or however you want to phrase it, and write about it in a really sophisticated way, and I really have always enjoyed that. So yeah, that's what I read growing up.
And all of you technically work for sort of rival outlets, I suppose. Is there any content or any shows you've seen on like the other channels that you're like, oh, I wish I'd made that?
Well, I love eating with my ex. I'm trying to think in terms of there's some big Vice documentaries that I absolutely love, like Gaycation, but I couldn't, or Pins and Needles. But I absolutely love it, and you can really admire, you know, other programs and kind of go, but would it be right for MTV? Probably not. But sometimes I think when you work in TV and you kind of get to see the magic behind it, and there are. I sometimes get jealous, you know, I wish I could have been part of that, or it would have been a fun experience to, you know, have learned about how to do that, and there are various formats, whether they're short form or long form, or depending on the genre, where you're just like, you know, there would be be a great opportunity, and we're quite niche, we're quite in one lane at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Can you please bring back Sunsets and Suspicious Parents?
That was so good, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you binge watched that.
Yeah, I probably think about that show once a month. Yeah, yeah, I really do. God, I love it so much. And I also watch X on the Beach. I really enjoy X on the Beach. And I've also really enjoyed some of the kind of more scripted stuff that BBC Three's been doing, like Murdered by My Father. Yeah.
And Murdered for My Debt.
And Murdered, yeah. Kind of like, I think it's a really good way of approaching the issue without doing the kind of straightforward sit down face-to-face interview. I think it's more, it kind of relates more. I think people can get a bit fatigued with documentaries, so yeah.
And likewise, you know, we sit and watch everything that everyone else does, but I think it's really important that, you know, MTV, you know, does its thing and we do ours, and I think actually there's no shame in saying, you know, MTV just does entertainment and fun, because, you know, we all need that in our lives, and I think Vice is very fearless in what it does as well. So, you know, there's so much stuff that we kind of see out there and we go, oh, you know, I wish I'd done that. But I also think sometimes you do in the role, you get very kind of focused in on your own kind of piece of content that it's hard to see the wood for the trees. So it's good to get up and see what everyone else is doing.
Then it's like three really strong brands, isn't it? People come to you for specific things. How have you kind of worked up the identity of the brands that you work on? It's quite a big question.
I think, well, MTV, you know, started as a predominantly music, is music television, and it started off being music videos, but and sometimes, you know, you did get some old people going, well, you know, what about MTV? You know, where's the music on MTV now? But MTV's also been, I would say, the pioneer of reality television, and I'd argue that The Real World was one of the very first reality TV shows, and MTV also kind of led the way then going into things like The Hills, which was, you know, it's almost like the predecessor for Tᴡɪᴛᴛᴇʀ and more of the scripted reality shows, and also The Osbournes in terms of access into celebrity reality life. And so MTV is, you know, a big brand thing has been like innovate the genre of reality and what's next. And I think just in terms of what we are, it's just you kind of know what works, and you try and go, are we, you know, Geordie Shore's been such a massive juggernaut and such a massive success all around the world, and it's like, what is it about Geordie Shore that is such a big success, and what does that mean for us as a channel? And is it the party? You know, is it Newcastle? Are people just obsessed with people from Newcastle upon Tyne, or is it, you know, Geordie Shore? You know, I would argue that is this century's Osbornes, or this generation's Osbornes being a dysfunctional family. So I think we kind of build on family and fun and values, but from a really entertainment side. And I think the other thing is letting people have their own voice and letting young people be them, regardless of who they are. I think, actually, I don't think these days, but it certainly did feel like there were other channels and broadcasters that were putting out youth television. It felt like it was made by adults, for adults, with a really sneery look on it. And I think at MTV we really just try and give young people their voice, regardless of, you know, how displeasing it might be to their parents or grandparents.
How about you guys?
I think you know, we're part of the BBC. We're publicly funded. We're there to tell stories with purpose, and I think like I said before, I think when I was growing up, certainly 80s, 90s, you know, television was so much about young people as yobs and Asbo, kind of hoodie donning, you know, Asbo lovers. And actually, now with online content, you see such inspirational stuff out there, young people doing great things. And it always surprised me when I moved to BBC Three, because I'd just come from a stint at Channel 4. And you know, we put out a story about young people volunteering. It was just a short 4-minute clip, and absolutely just, you know, people, you know, completely responded to it and identified with it and shared it. And I was thinking, but this is a story about volunteering. This is like a local news story. That's what, you know, my old kind of editorial judgment would have said that's what that is. But actually, it was Three saying, look, this is what you guys do, and this is a story of one young person volunteering, and people could really identify with that. So I think we're very good at telling stories with purpose, and you know, like I said before, you know, helping young people navigate their lives and speak in their own voice, if you like.
And yeah, I guess I kind of touched on this earlier, but our origins were as a punk magazine, and so that means there's some kind of fruity stuff in the archives actually that I'm sure that the companies probably would rather you didn't order away and Google. But so we've kind of had a bit of a kind of interesting kind of history as a brand, in that we started out as a punk magazine. That was about 10 to 15 years where all we did basically was write about drugs and sex on drugs. Since then, we've somewhat professionalised, but there's still that. What I like about Vice is that, like, we write about really serious stuff. We do. People have kind of said that it's kind of like gonzo journalism. So there was, you know, we would get access to other places that other publications maybe would not go. So send someone into ISIS-controlled territory and they're going to film a documentary for you there. Like, a lot of people come to Vice through watching our YouTube channel, so they'll watch films that we put out. And we have quite a distinctive visual style, I think. So our films are, we do not have huge crews, we do not have fixed setups, we don't really do like sit-down interviews with loads of big heat lamps everywhere. Everything feels really raw, and I think that's one of the things that people relate to. I think that we've kept our kind of genuine kind of counterculture origins, and I think that we really have that heritage. So we're never, I don't know how else to say it, apart from say we're never going to do anything that's really whack. Like, it's never going to be like really old and really staged and really boring. We do genuinely care about like reporting on subcultures, but we also we have like an ability and a willingness to kind of go and touch stories that other people don't really want to touch, and also to do them in quite a fearless way. So a big state-funded broadcaster is going to have probably better processes in place to deal with certain stories, but we will have a 3-person crew that can be there in a day from commissioning out. So that means that we can be really fast, and we can turn around stories really, really fast. And the people that we work with are young, and they're in the communities that we're reporting on. So that's probably our brand and our culture.
Okay, let's open it up to the floor. Jordan should be wandering around.
Hey!
Oh, hello. Put your hands up if you've got a question, and Jordan will get to you.
Oh, good, we've got some questions already. I will come to this gentleman first. If you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us if you're a student. There you go, fella.
Hello, I am Liam. I've got a question, it's more about Vice. How do you think, with Vice coming from less of like a traditional media background, how do you think that sort of benefited you and like hindered your progress in comparison to like MTV and BBC?
You mean me specifically, or just like generally? Okay. Yeah, I think. So Vice is, we don't have like huge teams, and we don't have that many structures in place. So I'm on an editorial team of about how many people? Maybe 10 people in the UK, and the production team is about 10 people. And there's two commissioning. People who commission films. So if I wanted to go and get a documentary commission, I just don't talk to the person over there and they commission it. And that kind of is really good, because it means that you don't have that, the systems and structures that you have to go through at other organisations that are much more established and have much more established ways of working don't really exist, which means that in a way it's not as good, because you don't get the kind of real kind of regimented professional kind of training opportunities that you would get in another organisation. So you don't get like, no one's going to sit you in a room and tell you how to do something. You're just going to have to figure it out for yourself in the job. But as a result, it means that if you are kind of really hungry and you're willing to kind of take a lot of rejection, actually, like honestly, like you've got to be able to just take it. Because if someone turns around and is like, yeah, this is rubbish, or this story's rubbish, or like we're killing this, it can be hard to kind of bounce back from that, but you have to. But on the plus side, you can kind of really forge your own path. And if you're really good and you work really hard, you can kind of do a lot of cool stuff that you probably wouldn't get anywhere near anywhere else, because you wouldn't have the right experience, or you'd have to spend years getting to that point.
Any more questions? We'll go to you. What's your name?
Holly.
Are you a student?
Yeah, I'm a master's student. I'm studying publishing.
Lovely. And what's your question for us?
So you talk about like finding like fresh and new content, but like how do you stay on top and find new stories when there is such like a quick turnaround with like big publications, and news drops so quickly and spreads so quickly that it seems like it's kind of impossible to keep it, like to come up with a fresh new idea for a story?
That's a good question, isn't it?
Shall I answer that? For me, I think it is impossible to find the new stories and keep up, and all we can do is internally we talk a lot, we look at our research a lot, we speak a lot with independent and freelance producers, constantly tasking them with what we are looking for. Are there new stories? Catfish, for instance, is a big show for us, which was based on on a bit of a phenomenon that one filmmaker kind of discovered, and we made a series about that. And I think it's like, what are the new catfishes? And they are out there, and they're in, Vice may have written about them, 3 months ago, and then it's not really massively picked up, or they're way on top of us, and it's really it's really, really difficult. It's really annoying whenever you see somebody else has found it and you're like, why did we not? Are we not speaking to the best people? Or, were we sleeping in that day? What happened? I don't know. It's the challenge, right? It's the race to find the new and the fresh, I guess, and it's not easy.
I mean, so there are lots of stories that will always be relevant. So sadly, mental health issues aren't going to go away, nor are sort of other stories. And I think for us, it's about the treatment. What we say is the kind of the method of storytelling, if you like. So we welcome ideas, a perennial that have always been around, but I guess it's finding that new way of telling that story, or that kind of new kind of vehicle for it, if you like. So there are many ways of telling the same story, and I think that changes when you have digital media.
Any more questions?
Great questions. We'll go to the back, Abbie, because there's some lovely people here waiting for us. We'll go to you, sir. What's your name?
My name's Jack. Hiya. With the change in fame as it is structured at the moment, gone more related to your personality as a reality star, what systems do you put in place to look after your stars and artists, say if a career's on its downward path? When you're say a guitarist or a musician, you sort of go, oh, my music's not relevant anymore, but I'm still a good person. When your personality is put on display to the public, obviously you're thinking, I'm not as interesting, I'm not as funny anymore. How do you support your stars, as you would say?
Sorry, so are you asking how do you support stars if their fame is dwindling?
If it's dwindling, or just keep a check on them, obviously, because their fame's so closely linked to their personality, because they're put on the screen, sort of thing. I think it's such an important issue that
I think people can be cynical about producers, and do we just want them there for the moment, and once they're gone, we drop them and we dump them. And I can only speak for my experience at MTV, really. And we, you know, when we employ someone on one of our shows, there's rigorous steps. First of all, that they have to be on, and they have to pass certain. You know, tests, and that they're okay, that they'll be able to cope mentally, and that's not just with being in the environment during filming, but also with fame. But once they're kind of in, we're kind of like, they're in the MTV family, and they kind of don't go, and that psych support and other kind of support, just in terms of talking with producers, or us at the channel, continues 24/7. Like, I have 4 a.m. phone calls with some of my stars. I've been on the phone, or I get, for new people on one of our shows, we get them into the company. The night before the first ever show, to show them what it's like. We talk them through what's going to happen on social media. The amount of trolling that goes on, especially with young girls on social media, is like a massive, massive problem, and we're acutely aware of that and sensitive to that. And we need to support them, and we need to keep going. And there are, I can't go into obviously personal information, but there is, we do have examples of talent and brilliant guys that we've worked in the past who are no longer making shows with us on MTV, but we're continuing to support them in whatever they need. And it is sometimes for them a second family, and they should feel like that. And the moment where that trust goes, and they feel like we can support them, whether it's through their mental health or anxiety, because it can be difficult for a lot of people. It's a very strange concept, is fame, but we have to be able to support them, because if we're not, then I just don't think we're being very responsible, and I don't really want to use people like that, I think.
Cool, thank you very much.
One more question.
Any more? We'll go to this gentleman here with the glasses on, and I couldn't have gone the worst way round. I'm like Keith Chegwin, but worse, and none of these people in this audience know who he is, so... there you go, mate. What's your name?
My name's Ed, and for people looking to move on to the next step, what advice would you have for people looking for like paid internships or work experience?
To be honest, I would say like a personal approach is good, but that's just because my publication doesn't really offer paid internships anymore. So unfortunately, the best thing that you can kind of do if you want to get some sort of like experience is to build a relationship with people who work there. So for example, one thing that I think that a lot of people who want to get into journalism, particularly writing, don't realise is that there is nothing that is stopping you from just doing it already. So loads of young writers that I meet are like, oh, I really want to be a journalist, but I can't get work experience anywhere. And I was like, well, actually, you don't need that, because I didn't have that. I never got work experience anywhere. What you need is to be able to find a really good story and go and write it. That's actually what you need, and there's nothing stopping you from doing that. You can do that on your own. And so the kind of advice that I would always give to somebody who wants to get into writing is just to start writing, and to find a story, think about who would be the best publication to run that story, find an editor at that publication and pitch it to them, because you'd be surprised. People do check their emails, and if your story's good enough, you will have quite a good chance of getting that story commissioned. And then when I'm working with writers, I literally just look at like articles that they've written for other publications to get a sense of what their interests are and if they're any good. So start off with a really small publication and build up and build out from there. And the really good advantage of that is that you can do that from your bedroom. You don't need to be living in London and commuting to like Zone 1 every single day on your own dime to do that. You don't need to be making tea at the Financial Times to be doing that. You can just do that. And actually that was my route into the industry, so that's kind of the gospel that I would preach to everyone else. Anyone else want to think?
Yeah, I would say, look, these things take time. I think there is sometimes an image that these things happen overnight. It'd be good to kind of for you to kind of figure out in your head which bit of kind of the media you're interested in. There's nothing worse than somebody who comes up to you and says, "I want to work in the media," and then you say, "Which bit of the media?" and they go, "I don't know." So it'd be great for you to have at least some sense of whether you're interested in sport, for instance, or interested in factual storytelling, or written editorial journalism. So have some interest and some passion around that as well would be great. And I would say, you know, you're not going to get sucked in, you may do, but you're not going to get sucked into something in the big city straight away. So start local, have a look at what's going on in your area, which companies are based here, so production companies who make video content, and work with them. And then, you know, slowly build from that, you know, just get as much experience. And I would say I totally appreciate that in the digital world, you know, now there are many ways to, say, becoming a commissioning editor. My path, sadly, is very, very conventional. You know, I went through the ropes as a runner, trainee runner, researcher, assistant producer, working as a head of development, and then getting a traineeship in commissioning. So it's a very conventional path, and I recognise that that's not necessarily the only way. So we have people who are ex-vice, and we recognise to have a skill that's a very new skill for a very new audience. But what I would say is that it definitely will pay you dividends if you try to kind of get as much experience as you go along and not expect to become a producer all of a sudden simply because, let's say, you went to film school. You know, it'll take a long time. So I think people will really value you if you get the little steps in between and really work and graft in between. So.
Thank you so much. You've been brilliant. Can we give it up for the panel, please? Thank you so much to Craig, Sirin and Nasfim as well. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and then we're going to come back with our Passion to Brand panel. So see you in 2.